You meet her, and at first it feels magical, like she finally sees you, values you, loves you for who you are. But then it shifts. Suddenly, everything you do is wrong. And no matter how hard you try, she seems more distant, more dissatisfied. You start to wonder if maybe the problem is you. It's not. What you're experiencing is a psychological trap, one that can drain you of your worth and leave you a shadow of yourself. In this video, I'm going to expose the 10 tactics female covert narcissists use once they've got you hooked. If you've ever felt that your relationship is slowly destroying you, this is the wake-up call you need. And if you're ready to stop feeling powerless in love and start reclaiming your sense of self, this is your moment. Subscribe, give this video a like, and write in the comments a short commitment. I choose myself. That one simple step marks the beginning of your recovery, because what comes next is the first move in her playbook. The tactic that hooks you, convinces you you're special, and then uses it to break you down. Number 1. She builds trust faster than you ever thought possible, and then she weaponizes it against you. At the start, she lays out her secrets, her pain, her so-called vulnerabilities, as if you're the only man she's ever trusted this deeply. She makes you believe that you're different, that you've been given the rare honor of holding her fragile heart in your hands. And as a man, you step into that role with pride. You feel protective, needed, like you've finally been chosen for something bigger than yourself. But here's the trap. What began as intimacy quickly flips into accusation. The very thing she shared with you, those confessions, those late-night stories, those tears, become the tools she uses to claim you're the one, making her unsafe. Suddenly, the man she trusted the most is the man she blames for her insecurities. She accuses you of not protecting her, not prioritizing her, not living up to the man you promised to be. And every time you try to defend yourself, it only tightens the noose. You see, the betrayal isn't just that she turns on you. The deeper wound is that she twists your instinct to protect into a lifelong test you'll never pass. You're left questioning whether you failed her, when in reality the game was rigged from the start. That initial trust wasn't a gift, it was bait. And once you swallow it, she knows she can control you with the constant threat of withdrawing the version of herself you fell in love with. Number 2, she manufactures conflict out of thin air and then convinces you it's all your fault. Picture this. You're calm, relaxed, and in a perfectly fine mood. Yet she looks at you and says, "What's wrong with you? Why are you so negative? You've got a tone." At first you brush it off, but she keeps pushing, insisting something is off, demanding to know why you're angry, even when you're not. And here's the trick. By repeating it enough, she eventually drags you into a fight you never wanted. She baits you into reacting, then uses your reaction as proof that she was right all along. You weren't angry before, but after being accused over and over, frustration builds, and finally you snap. Now she has what she wanted, ammunition. She gets to play the victim, and you're cast as the man who loses control. Other times she flips the script. She acts upset, clearly withdrawing from you, but when you ask what's wrong, she refuses to say. You beg, you plead, you apologize just to close the gap, yet she never even tells you what crime you supposedly committed. The silence is strategic. It leaves you chasing answers, desperate to get back in her good graces, apologizing for offenses that don't exist. The point of these fabricated fights isn't resolution, it's control. By creating chaos out of nothing, she keeps you unsteady, doubting yourself, and constantly working to fix problems that were never real to begin with. And that's the real injustice. You're stuck cleaning up a mess that she invented while she sits back and watches you squirm. Number 3, she never takes responsibility, and she makes sure you carry the weight of every problem. Try bringing up something that bothers you. Maybe she crossed a boundary. Maybe she dismissed you in front of others. Instead of listening, she shuts you down. She minimizes your concerns, rolls her eyes, or flat out tells you you're overreacting. The message is clear. Your feelings don't matter, and if you press further, if you dare to hold her accountable, she doesn't just resist. She flips the script entirely. Suddenly, the issue isn't what she did, it's how you're handling it. She'll accuse you of being too sensitive, too demanding, or, worse, she'll suggest that your past wounds are the real cause of the conflict. The spotlight never stays on her behavior. Somehow, it always circles back to you. On rare occasions, she might throw out an apology, but don't be fooled. That apology isn't about admitting fault. It's bait to get you to confess that deep down you're the problem. Her "I'm sorry" is really a setup for you to say, "No, it's me. I shouldn't have." And once you do, she's off the hook. The responsibility she should carry lands squarely on your shoulders. Over time, this constant dismissal erodes your confidence in your own reality. You stop bringing up concerns because you know it'll be twisted against you. You swallow your frustration. Tell yourself it's not worth the fight, and little by little you lose your voice in the relationship. That's not communication, it's psychological suffocation, and it leaves you trapped, choking on words you'll never get to say. Number 4, she takes your deepest wounds, the ones you shared with her in trust, and turns them into knives she can use against you. In the early days, she encourages you to open up. She tells you it's safe, that she wants to understand your past, your fears, your scars, and as a man, that feels rare. You finally let someone see the parts of you you've kept hidden. Believing it will build intimacy and closeness. But later, when conflict comes, those same confessions resurface, not as compassion, but as ammunition. If you once admitted to childhood struggles, she'll throw it back in your face. This is why you're so messed up. If you told her about failures, she'll use them as proof you'll never measure up. What was supposed to be a safe space becomes a battlefield, and your own words become the bullets. This is where the betrayal cuts deepest, because men are taught to hold it all in. When you finally drop your guard, you expect loyalty. Instead, you find your vulnerability has been catalogued, stored, and unleashed at the worst possible moment. She doesn't comfort you, she exploits you. She sees your pain not as something to nurture, but as leverage to control. The result, you stop trusting. You stop sharing. You lock those doors tighter than ever, not just with her, but with everyone. And over time, you realize you're not just fighting her manipulation, you're fighting the shame of ever having let her in. That's not intimacy, that's psychological sabotage. And it leaves you bleeding from wounds that should have healed. Number 5, no matter what you do, you will always be wrong. This is the no-win scenario, and it's one of the most exhausting games she plays. Imagine you're in the middle of an argument. You decide to step outside, take a walk, cool down. Any reasonable person would see that as mature, but not her. To her, you're running away, abandoning the conversation, proving you don't care. So next time you stay, you sit across from her and try to work it out in the moment, but now you're too pushy, too aggressive, too unwilling to give her space, the very thing she criticizes. And before becomes the excuse to criticize you again, and there it is. You're trapped in a cycle where every choice leads to failure. Over time, you start second-guessing everything. Should you speak up or stay silent? Should you lean in or pull back? Doesn't matter. Either way, she'll twist it into another charge against you. The rules change constantly, but the outcome never does. You lose every single time. And here's the dangerous part. When a man lives long enough in a no-win situation, he begins to believe that maybe the problem is him. Maybe he really can't do anything right. That self-doubt eats away at your confidence until you're no longer the man who once walked tall. You're the man who flinches, who hesitates, who's always waiting for the next blow. That's not love. That's entrapment. It's a rigged game designed to drain you of energy, identity, and fight until you're too exhausted to even remember you had a choice. Number 6. She constantly compares you to other men, and no matter what you do, it's never enough. Maybe it's a passing comment about how her friend's husband takes her on vacations, or how a co-worker is more ambitious, or even how an ex used to do this better. At first it might seem subtle, almost harmless, but repetition turns it into poison. What she's really doing is planting a seed of inadequacy. Every comparison tells you that you're falling short, that you're not measuring up, and as a man, your natural instinct is to compete, to prove you're better, to fight for the top spot. You double your effort, spend more money, give more time, push yourself harder, believing that if you just go the extra mile, you'll finally silence the comparisons. But here's the truth. The finish line keeps moving. The more you chase, the more she shifts the target. It's not about you winning, it's about keeping you stuck in the endless loop of trying to prove yourself. Meanwhile, she contributes little all, while acting as if she's the one carrying the relationship. The result, you end up drained, financially, emotionally, spiritually, while she sits back and watches you work harder and harder for rewards that never come. And the cruel twist, she frames it so convincingly that you believe the failure is yours, not hers. Comparison is one of the sharpest blades in her arsenal because it strikes at the heart of a man's pride. It makes you compete for a prize that doesn't exist. And by the time you realize it, you've already spent years running a race you could never win. Number 7. She grades your performance like a teacher marking a failing student. It doesn't matter what you do, she'll find a way to score it, evaluate it, and let you know you came up short. Maybe after a night together she says, "That was only a 6 out of 10. Or after a vacation you planned, she complains, "That was barely 40% of what I expected." This isn't just nitpicking, it's systematic devaluation. Every grade chips away at your sense of accomplishment. You pour your time, your money, your effort into the relationship, and in return you're told it's subpar. Over and over, the message sinks in, you're not good enough. And here's where it gets insidious. If you grew up with a parent who was impossible to please, this tactic hooks you even deeper. That old wound of striving for approval kicks in and suddenly you're right back in that childhood loop, trying harder, pushing more, begging for crumbs of validation. She doesn't just criticize what you did. She makes you feel like who you are will never be enough. The more you try to raise your score, the lower she marks you. It's a game designed so you can't win. Because the goal isn't satisfaction, it's control. She knows that as long as you're chasing her approval, she has the upper hand. This constant grading leaves you walking on eggshells, second-guessing every word, every gesture, every effort. Instead of being her partner, you become her project. A man under evaluation forever, trying to pass a test that was rigged from day one. Number 8. She enforces boundaries when it benefits her but completely tramples yours. If she doesn't like something, it's a hard rule, untouchable, non-negotiable. But when you try to set limits, suddenly you're controlling, selfish, or unreasonable. It's a double standard that always tilts in her favor. Maybe you ask for space after a long day. She ignores it, accusing you of being distant. But when she wants space, you're expected to give it instantly and without question. Or perhaps you draw the line on how she speaks to you in public. She laughs it off, calls you too sensitive, yet if you make the smallest slip, she treats it like betrayal. This isn't about equality. It's about power. Boundaries are supposed to protect both people, to create respect. But with her, they're one-sided. Her needs are absolute. Yours are irrelevant. And the more you give in, the more ground you lose. Piece by piece, you start abandoning your own standards just to keep the peace. Over time, you realize you're living by her rulebook. What you want, what you need, what makes you comfortable, none of it matters. The relationship becomes a dictatorship disguised as love. And the cruelest part, she convinces you that respecting her boundaries makes you a good man, while enforcing your own makes you the villain. This imbalance suffocates you. It strips away your freedom to be yourself. And if you don't wake up to the double standard, you'll find yourself reduced to nothing more than a man who bends, breaks, and erases himself just to keep her satisfied. Number 9. She doesn't just want to know what you're doing, she wants to control it. At first, it might look like concern. Where are you going? Who are you talking to? But quickly, the questions turn into accusations. A simple trip to the grocery store becomes a cross-examination. A chat with a coworker is twisted into betrayal. Even the gym becomes suspicious in her eyes. This isn't about jealousy, it's about domination. She frames it as care, but it's really surveillance. She questions not only where you go, but how you do it, as if you can't be trusted to make even the smallest decision on your own. And the more you submit to these interrogations, the more you start second-guessing yourself. Before long, you're checking with her on everything. Should you buy this? Should you meet that friend? Should you stay late at work? You become so conditioned to her oversight that you stop trusting your own judgment. Your independence shrinks, and you begin to live like a man who needs permission just to exist. The trap is subtle but devastating. She convinces you that her control is proof of love, that her constant monitoring means she cares. But the truth is darker. She's eroding your confidence step by step until you don't recognize yourself anymore. That's the real danger. Not just losing your freedom, but losing your belief that you were ever capable of freedom in the first place. It's not partnership, it's psychological captivity dressed up as devotion. Number 10. Over time, she breaks down who you are until all that's left is a hollow version of the man you used to be. It doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual, subtle, piece by piece. At first, you're confident, grounded, proud of who you are. But after months or years of her tactics, you start to lose sight of that man. You adjust yourself, constantly asking, what am I doing wrong? How can I fix this? How do I make her happy? Every day becomes a test you can't pass. You pour yourself into proving your worth, and in the process, your self-worth evaporates. You stop recognizing your own reflection. The strong man who once stood tall is replaced by someone smaller, someone who exists only to please. The scariest part is when you start to believe her version of you, the broken, flawed, defective man she paints you to be. You look in the mirror, and instead of seeing the person you were, you see the monster she's been describing all along. That's psychological domination at its peak. You're no longer just controlled by her. You've internalized her voice as your own. By then, you're not her partner. You're her pet, a man trained to respond, to obey, to live for crumbs of approval. And the longer you stay in that cage, the harder it is to remember that you ever had the key to leave. This isn't love. It's the slow death of your identity. And unless you wake up to it, you risk losing not just the relationship, but yourself. You've just seen 10 tactics. And here's the brutal truth. None of them are accidents. They're not quirks. They're not misunderstandings. And they're not things you can fix with more patience or more effort. They form a system, a deliberate strategy designed to dismantle you piece by piece until you no longer know where she ends and you begin. Think about it. From the moment she drew you in, she dangled intimacy like bait. Then came the passive aggression, the constant conflict, the refusal to ever take responsibility. She took your vulnerabilities, your love, your effort, and turned them against you. And while you fought to keep the relationship alive, she fed on that fight, making you believe you were the problem. That's not love. That's psychological warfare. And every tactic you just heard has the same goal to keep you trapped in a cycle where you're always chasing, always proving, always falling short. The longer you stay, the more you erode, not just as a partner, but as a man. So here's the question you have to face. Since the beginning of this relationship, have you grown stronger or weaker? Are you becoming a better version of yourself, or just a shadow of the man you once were? If the answer is painful, then it's also clear you're not in a relationship. You're in a cage, but cages can be broken. Once you recognize the pattern, once you call these tactics out for what they are, you take the first step back toward freedom. You stop playing a game that was designed for you to lose. You start rebuilding your voice, your boundaries, and your worth. And if this message struck a chord, I want you to do 2 things. First, share it because there's another man out there right now trapped in the same cycle who needs this wake-up call. Second, subscribe to this channel because this isn't just about surviving toxic tactics. It's about reclaiming control, rebuilding strength, and never again losing yourself in someone else's game.